Welcome everybody. As Dave said, my name is Terry Smith. Today I'm going to take you through a brief introduction of Alpha Anywhere Application Server for IIS. This is the most important bullet point up here, is available today. Links will be going out in a webinar email, an email after the webinar, so you can download the beta and get a license key. There are also docs with an overview, an installation guide, and a getting started guide. Those links will also be provided. Today, let's show you how Alpha Anywhere Application Server for IIS is integrated in IIS, how you can manage it from the IAS Manager, and you can see the rest of the bullet points here. We'll create a few basic applications, well one application with a couple of different modifications, and then I'll also show you an existing app that is published to run under IIS, and then I'll take your questions and answers. Okay, so to start off, I'll go to my server. Here's my server, IIS already installed, and I also have Alpha Anywhere Application Server for IIS installed. That takes about 2 minutes, but I didn't want to bore you seeing that getting installed. Very straightforward. I'll open up the IIS Manager. This server, as you can see, is Windows Server 2012 Standard Edition, which uses IIS 8. But you can also use Windows Server 2008 R2 and IIS 7.5. Let me open up IIS Manager. Here we go. And I'll click on the top link. And you can see right away there's a dedicated section for Alpha Anywhere. I will show you the license information page first, but because it has a sensitive key on it, I will open it off screen and delete that key. And this is where you do license management. There's one license per machine. You can also see down here that the key can be stored in a shared configuration. I won't go over too many details about IIS, but that's a feature within IIS where configuration for machines in a web farm can be stored in a shared location. So you can put a license key in that shared configuration, and anytime a server is added to that web farm, it will get that license key. Once you get the IIS beta download, you'll get the license key and enter it into here. The next step that we need to do is set up IIS for direct publishing. Today we're going to be publishing directly from the Alpha Anywhere Development Edition to IIS. In order to do that, there's a management service that is installed. It's defined in the install instructions. It's running, and you can see it's enabled for remote connections. The second thing you need to do is go to this direct publishing icon. This will open up firewall ports and configure IIS to accept publishing from Alpha Anywhere. With that all set, we can also see this is the IIS Manager running on the same server as IIS. You could also run a UI-less server or a headless server and do all this management remotely, but I won't be doing that today. Here we go. Let's go over to my client machine, and I've got Alpha 5 already installed. This is a Windows 8.1 Pro operating system. We'll get Alpha Anywhere started up. I won't open anything right yet. The first thing you'll need to do for the beta is to add a feature pack key to enable IIS publishing. This is included in the links that will be sent once you download the beta. Once you've added that, you'll be able to publish to IIS. So now, let's create some simple web applications to demonstrate publishing to IIS. I'll create a new workspace. And I'll just do a very simple single page that says hello from IIS. I'll call this page hello. Now each web project can have a default page for it when it's published, so I didn't choose a default name, index A5W, I chose hello, so I'm going to set that up. And now I can go ahead and publish this to IIS. I need to configure a profile. A default profile that's set up is for local web root for the existing web application server. What I want to do is add one to publish to IIS. With that feature pack key, you now get an option for publishing to IIS. I'm going to publish directly to IIS, and I have to tell Alpha Anywhere what machine I'm publishing to. And I'm going to publish to the default website, since that's already there, and I'm going to include an application name instead of using the default application, which we know application name. And there are a few other options here which aren't important right now. This is a default page for launch. I'm not going to be using that. Here's some XBasic settings and grid cache settings. I'm going to select all the defaults. And here's something specific to IIS as well called an application pool. For those of you not that familiar with IIS, an application pool is a unit of isolation in IIS. So I want to isolate this app from every other app and every other site running under that instance of IIS. So I'm going to create a private app pool, and it'll be given this name, default website underscore IIS webinar. And the default is to also use a number of 5 processes. This is being used, for those of you who do PDF printing, you're familiar with needing the report server. Well, the report server is no longer used because IIS can run multiple processes. And this is how printing is done under IIS. There will be no more report server. And this is how I'm going to communicate with IIS during publishing. I'm going to connect using my Windows credentials. And finally, this option allows me to specify which instance or which installation of Alpha Anywhere that's on the server. You may have more than one if you need to run different versions. In this case, we're not doing that, so I'm choosing the default. And you can see the property sheet has this new section for publishing to IIS, which you can modify all those settings that we just used the Genie to set up. Let's save this, and now let's go and publish it. Select that profile. A whole bunch of options went away because they're no longer needed or don't apply when publishing under IIS. Go ahead and publish this. And publishing is complete. So now I can load that page. IIS will load the application and return to me a page. Hello. So let's go take a look at what was done under an IIS. So taking a look at the app pools, you can see here an app pool was added for the IIS webinar. And if I take a look at the sites, it's the default website, and here's the IIS webinar site. And it can be, you can manage the website right through IAS Manager now. Here's the grid caching, XBasic logging, and I'll get to these in the next step. These are security options for testing. So, okay, well, let me go right to that. Let's add security to this web app. And we'll do this in the traditional way. By using security tables. I'll use DDF for this. Oops. Need to add login page. Oops. I'm going to remove certain restrictions, name to make it easier. Okay, I'm going to add a test user and group. And this is all the same way as you've done in the past. There's no difference. I'll add test user to the web users group. Save that. Let's create a login component before I forget to do that. Save. Save page. Now we have a login page with a login component. And let's go back to security and let's allow. So hello, you have to be in the web users group to view the hello page. Okay, let's see if I got all that right. And I'll just republish that. That's out there. It's going to, oops, hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. Go back here, make sure my cookies are empty. There's no cookies, so you can trust that when I reload the page, access is written. Oh, this is where I made the mistake. Hello. There we go. Cancel, close. All right, let's go back to the original one. I can follow a script, but if I don't type what I have in the script, it's not going to work. I'm sorry, everybody. And here we are, back on track. Test user secret. And hello from IIS. Well, that's nice. We're back on track. See if I can catch up. What I really want to do now is show you that I'm really logged in as that person. So I'll come in here and add some XBasic to display the current user's name. I'll save that and republish. That's there. I'll do a reload and say I'm test user. Great, so now we can use the existing security system that you're all familiar with, but another feature that has been introduced is integrated Windows authentication. I do have to make one adjustment on the server to allow for this because I'm publishing to the same website, and the website only allows one type of auth to be done at a time. You can't do form authentication and Windows authentication in the same site. So I'll disable that, enable this in the site, and go back to Alpha Anywhere and go to the web security. And you notice there's this new option for use Active Directory. What that will do is allow you to publish an Active Directory configuration to do either forms-based authentication, in which a user will still enter credentials, although it will be their Windows username and Windows password, or an integrated authentication, where the user is logged into the same domain that the web server is running on, and so the web server and the browser can do a handshake to determine who the user is and also what their authorizations are. If you notice, after selecting Use Active Directory, the prompt down here changed from Security Table Type to Security Table Type for Development and Testing. Usernames and groups are still stored, in this case, in a DBF file, so that you can do offline testing for the groups that you're going to use for Active Directory. As long as you name the groups the same as in Active Directory, then using the existing security system and security tables, you can test for the different groups that you need. So you can have test users that belong to this group to verify that your application behaves in the same way before it's running under a live Active Directory installation. So I checked that to use Active Directory. I'll save that. This notice is popping up because it knew that this web app was already using security and you changed to use Active Directory. And the bulk operation is to be done to update components to work with Active Directory. So I'll go do that now. Cancel that. Edit bulk operations using Active Directory. This happens very quickly. It would happen very quickly anyway, but there's only one component here. Let's go back to web security and to the users and groups. And I want to use my Active Directory users and groups. Now, I could type in a bunch of test users, and I could also type in the groups that I'm using from Active Directory. But because we already know I have problems typing, I'm going to import from Active Directory since I do have access to Active Directory, so I don't have to bother typing the names in. If you have multiple organization units in your Active Directory, you can select a specific organizational unit so that you don't have to have too many groups in your group list. In this case, I am just going to import all organizational units. I'm going to overwrite all my existing groups, and I want to add test users for each group. So here are all my groups entered correctly in my group list and a bunch of test users. I'm not going to go through a test or a development type system. I'm going to go right to publishing to a live Active Directory or using live Active Directory. But one thing I need to do is because my names have changed for my groups, I need to go back to my page security and reapply security for my hello page. You know I'm in the engineering development group, so I'll give myself access to that page because I'm in that group. And now what I need to do is create a profile for publishing with Active Directory. So I'll select IIS again, and the first option that comes up, or the first Genie page, is for Active Directory, since I had selected that in the security settings. Now I'll publish to Active Directory. As I mentioned earlier, you could do form-based authentication where the user enters in their username and password, and this is the configuration I use for that. However, I want to use integrated authentication, and so the options become much fewer. And the rest is set up exactly the same way as the other published profile. I'll call this integrated auth. Default page. Again, selecting all the defaults. Here are the published IIS settings. And in the miscellaneous section, you'll see there's now publish Active Directory configuration with a checkbox and the ability to configure the Active Directory, which brings up the same dialog that you saw from the Genie. I'll save that, and let's publish this. And now I'll go to integrated auth as it loads, and now it knows that I am engineering Terry. It didn't prompt me for password. It already knew who I was and authenticated based on that. So let's show you one more item. Let's display the groups that I belong to show that the groups that IIS is pulling through to compare against what was selected in the security settings. I'll copy some XBasic in there. Save that, republish. I'll reload this. And now you can see all the groups I'm a member of. See, these are the domain groups that I'm a member of. These groups are also either local groups or well-known groups in Windows. So you could also type these groups in and use them in Alpha, but since they vary from machine to machine, well, they are well known, but you'd have to have them set up on the local machine that the web server is running on in order to use them. So they're not included currently in the options for import Active Directory groups. So that's great. You've seen now simple applications that are created from scratch running under IIS. You have existing applications that you might want to run under IIS. You don't need to change those applications. You may need to change some publishing options, but you don't need to change those applications. Here, I'll show you one of the sample apps that comes installed with Alpha Anywhere. It's the Alpha Anywhere Web Components demo. The XBasic and components haven't changed. All I have to do is create a publish profile to go to IIS. Now this app was developed for publishing to local web root. My instance of IIS is not running locally. It's running on a separate server. So I need to publish the local database files as well. And I've already done this. So here are the local databases, their access files. And I want to publish them to my SQL server. This utility, this button, will help you do that. You can just select SQL server you want to go to. In this case, it's a SQL Server Express instance. I'll test that connection, make sure I got that right. That worked. And it examines that database server, sees that these files have already been published there, so I'm not going to overwrite them. But otherwise, it would publish those files to SQL Server, those access databases to SQL Server as SQL Server databases. One other change that had to be made for publishing was to publish these data files. In this case, the Flowers DBF. That gets published to an app data folder, and another change that had to be made was to set the path alias so that I could find that file. Now all these things that I just showed you are included in the Getting Started guide, which goes through and uses the App Server demo app as an example of publishing an existing app. So I did rush through those, but this is all documented, and you can read through that doc and follow along through there as well. It's already been published. So I'll just bring that up. And you can see it's served up and working. The login works. John Doe. Logged in, and I'll go through a few of these. Here's the example where the flowers were needed. They were published. This is all coming from the IAS server now. You can go and show printing. So reports is an embedded PDF. And so your existing apps should run unaltered with testing, of course, with some publishing options selected right under IIS. That's all I plan to show for today. Thanks for listening.